Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea confirms more than 100 cases of COVID-19, many apparently linked to recent family get-togethers. The country just days ago decided to ease its social distancing measures. South Korea's top defense and security officials are in Washington to meet with their American counterparts, talking about the transfer of wartime operational control to South Korea and other issues related to the alliance. And the head of the IMF warns governments not to pull the plug too early on spending to contain the coronavirus and to support their citizens affected by it, or there could be serious consequences for the global economy. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea's daily COVID-19 cases are back above 100 today, up 26 from yesterday to a total of 110. Some of those are part of a large outbreak at a nursing home in Busan. It seems the rise in cases is connected to all the travel people have been doing this month for the holidays. Lee Kyung-eun has the latest.
South Korea reported 110 new COVID-19 cases on Thursday. In the past 2 weeks, the daily numbers have been hovering around the 100 mark. And Thursday's tally puts the figure into triple digits for the third time this month. The recent spike comes from a series of cluster infections, including a major one in the country's second largest city of Busan. At a nursing home in the city, 53 cases have been confirmed after some 260 related people were tested for the virus. With nursing homes once again emerging as a COVID-19 hotspot, health authorities are responding with aggressive measures.
We will conduct a special inspection on all nursing homes in the Busan area. We'll complete inspections and social distancing measures, the wearing of masks and entry logs at these facilities by tomorrow.
And the central government is planning to preemptively test some 160,000 people in the capital region.
For the capital region, which is among the most affected areas, we're planning to conduct tests on everyone linked to nursing homes and related facilities.
Other cluster infections around the country have come from gatherings from friends and family members. These outbreaks are likely to come from gatherings over the Chuseok Thanksgiving holiday. But concerns grow as they come following the relaxation of restrictions this week. Experts say protecting nursing homes is vital, with one of them suggesting regular preemptive testing at nursing homes is an option. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
South Korea's defense minister has called for the operational control of troops in wartime to be transferred from Washington to Seoul at an early date. He was meeting on Wednesday in Washington with his U.S. counterpart Mark Esper. OPCON transfer, however, is something Esper said would take time. The allies agreed, though, on the need to strike a new deal on sharing the costs of South Korea's defense. Yoon Jung-min reports.
On the issue of transferring wartime operational control from Washington to Seoul, U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper said it will take time for South Korea to meet the conditions for the transfer. His remarks show a gap between the two allies on the issue, as South Korea's defense minister's Hoon called for a prompt transfer during his meeting with Esper in Washington on Wednesday.
By assessing together South Korea-U.S. efforts for the OPCON transfer and discussing plans, we will do utmost to fulfill the conditions for the OPCON transfer at an early stage.
In their joint releases, the two sides said they have discussed the way forward for the wartime OPCON transition to the future Combined Forces Command, including the full operational capability certification. Esper also said the U.S. would welcome increased defense spending by South Korea, saying the two sides must find a more equitable means of sharing the costs so it doesn't fall unequally on American taxpayers. The defense cost-sharing negotiations with Seoul have been stalled since Washington has been demanding a sharp increase in the amount Seoul pays. Unlike in last year's joint releases, there was no mention of the U.S. commitment to maintaining its troop levels in South Korea. Also, a joint press conference scheduled after the meeting was canceled upon request by Washington. During the meeting, the U.S. defense chief also touched upon the security issue in the Indo-Pacific region, apparently targeting the rise of China. Esper also said the U.S. remains committed to the security of South Korea, saying North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile programs remain a serious threat to the security of the region and the world. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
And South Korea's National Security Advisor Hoon is going to meet with the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in Washington on Thursday local time. According to the Blue House, he arrived in the U.S. on Tuesday for a 4-day visit at Washington's invitation. This is his first trip to the U.S. since he became National Security Advisor in July. Seoul is expected to reaffirm the Seoul-Washington alliance and step up communication regarding North Korea's denuclearization and other bilateral issues. On Wednesday, Seoul met with his U.S. counterpart Robert O'Brien. His visit comes after President Moon Jae-in called again for a declaration formally ending the Korean War and a resumption of the inter-Korean peace process. The IMF is urging governments to continue their fiscal support for households in the pandemic and other spending, and is warning of serious economic consequences if the plug is pulled too early. Choi Min-jung reports.
The head of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, has expressed concerns over halting economic spending aimed at containing COVID-19, stressing that it's critical for a durable economic recovery.
Pull the plug too early, and then we can see serious self-inflicted harm. Avoid doing that.
Speaking at the annual meeting of the IMF and the World Bank on Wednesday, the chief added that a reduction of economic activities may also lead to serious consequences for the international economy. In addition, in order to boost productivity and incomes, the managing director urged countries to advance green projects as well as digital infrastructure. She also added that it is crucial to support citizens of low-income countries in dealing with severe debt burdens. Highlighting the correlation of medical breakthroughs with economic recovery, Georgieva also called for strong international cooperation in vaccine development and distribution.
A durable economic recovery is only possible if we beat the pandemic, and we beat it everywhere.
The U.S. Federal Reserve also said Wednesday that it would likely take another year for the economy to fully recover. And according to the Oxford Economics, the pandemic could cause great financial damage if it were to take more than that. On the same day, a U.S. official said a COVID-19 relief deal is unlikely before the U.S. presidential election in early November. Also, according to the G20 finance officials, the overall global economic recovery is still uneven and highly uncertain. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon. And for that, I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, global strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, good to have you back on.
Thank you for having me tonight.
Well, stocks on Wall Street were down for a second straight session overnight. It's apparently increasingly doubtful that there will be a deal on new stimulus by Election Day. What's the story in the global markets?
Yes, as you said, market does not like uncertainty, and we see huge uncertainty continues until the election finishes in U.S. U.S. market, Wall Street, fell for the second day on Wednesday as the hopes of stimulus before the election kind of faded. The Treasury Secretary Mnuchin declared that getting some kind of deal approved before the election would be very difficult. Clearly, this is causing concerns for the overall equity market trend. On top of this, if you look at the COVID-19 cases, in terms of creating the vaccine by sometime within this year, the possibility of that has gone down significantly. And that also we are seeing quite a bit of a jump in terms of the new patient in terms of COVID-19. And that is resulting into a concern that economic recovery of global scale might not be happening as we hope for. So all that is putting huge pressure for the overall equity market trend. And if you look at the U.S. futures market, it is down somewhere between 0.5% to 1%, depending on the indices. And also European market is also falling right now. So the uncertainty should remain in the future, and that the current volatility should probably linger on until the election is finished.
And it seems like much the same story here in Seoul. The Kospi down today, the Kosdaq by quite a bit. There's the added factor of COVID-19 cases being back over 100 today. Tell us what happened in the Korean market.
Yes, if you look at the Korea's overall market, the Kospi is down by about 0.8%, and also Kosdaq is down quite significantly by 2%. Despite the valuations look quite attractive and that economic growth rate seems to be reasonably better than global numbers, if you look at the overall volatilities, it's continued to be happening for Korea as the uncertainty in terms of the capital gains tax remains to be high, and that the requirement goes down to 300 million won. That will cause some of the concern of panic selling by the retail investors. If you look at the base rate, BOK have decided to keep the rate at 0.5%, and that should provide ample liquidity. And if you look at the M2 growth rate, it is showing about two-digit growth numbers. So liquidity is ample, but the short-term uncertainties of the economic numbers as well as the COVID-19 cases and the political uncertainty all result into the volatility for Korea as well. We think that until U.S. election is finished, Kospi should remain to be somewhere volatile, anywhere between 2,350 to 2,400 range.
And now elsewhere, we see oil prices have been up for a couple of trading days now. It seems the members of OPEC are complying with the production cuts they agreed to. Where do you see oil going?
Yes, in terms of the oil price, if you look at the supply and demand side, both is negatively affecting the oil price in general. So we do think that the oil price is not going to go up any significant amount in the future. But nevertheless, at a $40 per barrel level, we think that oil price should be fairly stable. If you look at the stocks of crude oil in the United States, it decreased by 5.42 million barrels in the week ended October 9th of 2020, following 0.95 million gain in the previous week. And this number is clearly much bigger drop than the market expectation of 3.39 million drop. So all in all, we think that the demand and supply side is not positively affecting, but as you said, the overall decline in terms of the production is happening, and also in terms of demand-wise, economic growth rate remains to be reasonably recovering in a similar pace as market expected. So we think that oil prices should be in a range bound. We think that it should be somewhere in between $35 to $45 range. We don't think that it's going to go up any higher than that, nor it go down any below than $35. So we should watch carefully in terms of what happens to the liquidity condition in the global market, as well as dollar index trend. We think the dollar index should remain at where it is, and also the price of oil should remain where it is.
Got it. All right, we'll leave it there for today. Mr. Yu, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
South Korea's population will be going through a lot of changes over the next 20 years, according to Statistics Korea. By 2040, there will be more foreign residents, for one thing, and more than 1/3 of the nation's population will be senior citizens. Our PNG has this report.
South Korea's population could look a lot different in 2040. The number of foreign residents is projected to grow by 550,000 over the next 20 years, an increase of 40%. According to Statistics Korea on Thursday, foreigners made up 3.3% of the total population in 2020, but this figure is expected to climb to 4.5% by 2040. While the number of foreigners is still rising, the number of South Koreans is falling.
We can expect a more diverse population from these figures. There should be more policies concerning foreign residents and the children in these households.
South Korea's population is also aging very quickly. This year, 8.3 million people in the country are aged 65 or older. That's 16.1% of the total population. But by 2040, there will be around 16.6 million people aged 65 or older. That's more than 1/3 of the country's entire population. Senior citizens are forecast to make up more than 20% of the total population in 2025 and surpass the 30% mark by 2035. The sharp increase is mainly due to the nation's low birth rate and the aging population.
The nation's birth rate dropped below 1 in 2018 and fell even further to hit a record low rate last year. 배은지, Arirang News.
South Korea now has its first so-called smart supermarket, where at night there are no employees. You let yourself in, shop, and pay for things on your own. It's located in Seoul's Dongjakgu district. From midnight to 9 a.m., it's unmanned, so to get in, you have to swipe a credit or debit card. On the way out, you scan your items and pay for them by card or smartphone. They won't be selling alcohol or cigarettes during the self-checkout time, though. The smart features are expected to benefit shop owners who won't have to work the graveyard shift.
With these stores being unmanned at night, we hope shop owners can enjoy their evenings and weekends. Also, we hope small and medium-sized businesses can better compete with the large retail stores.
There'll be 5 such stores as part of a trial run, and by next year, the government plans to authorize around 800 and then about 4,000 by 2025. And that does it for this newscast. Thank you for watching.